When this mother took her daughter to the zoo, she had no idea that their life was about to change forever. It all started when her daughter was allowed inside the lion cub enclosure. She patted the animals carefully, being a little bit scared at first. But pretty much immediately afterward, something incredible happened. Mother films daughter petting lions. 5 seconds later, something unbelievable happens. Ella and her mother, Lily, went to the zoo before. In fact, it was Ella's favorite place to visit. Every time they left the parks, she instantly asked her mother when they could go again. But today wasn't just your average park visit. No, today they had a different reason for coming. Today was special. Yes, today was very special. Because after long consideration, the zoo was going to allow visitors, under the supervision of staff, of course, to enter the animal enclosures. And Ella knew exactly which enclosure she wanted to visit. The one with the lion cubs was always her favorite. And now she could get extremely close. Lily was against her daughter doing such a dangerous thing at first. But as they arrived at the lion enclosure, Ella convinced her mother that everything was safe. The zoo only allowed animals that were well trained, and the staff would always be present to intervene. But things would not go as planned. Lily looked at the reassuring faces of the staff members and handed her daughter over into their capable hands. They know what they're doing, right? Why else would they allow a 4-year-old to enter a lion cub enclosure? She tried to put the worried thoughts out of her mind, and she grabbed the camera. The camera was set to record as Lily saw her little girl enter the enclosure. This was the moment her girl was looking forward to all week. Lily knew that she had to be happy for Ella, but she couldn't help the nerves shooting through her body. The door shut closed, and Ella stepped forward. It didn't take long for the little lions to notice that there was someone in their presence. They say that dogs can sense nerves in a person. Well, the same can be said for these large cats. Park personnel tried to calm Ella down completely before it was safe to continue. With Ella now calm again, they ventured further. The lion cubs were all lying in the corner of the cage. They had all just been fed and were resting together. Nothing to worry about, one of the staff members said. But they could never have predicted what was about to happen. Lily noticed that more and more people were gaining interest in what was happening in the enclosure. The fences surrounding the place were swarming with people in no time. And everyone was curious to see how this girl would interact with these young big cats. A sense of excitement and tension was in the air. Because the staff member holding Ella's hand saw that she was still a bit nervous, he decided to pave the way for her. They were now just about a foot away from the animal and were already hovering over it. He crouched down slowly and placed his hand on the lion cub's belly. "See, there is nothing to be scared about," he said. Now it was Ella's turn. She crouched down beside the man who had just explained to her what to do. Ella stretched out her arm and, while doing so, closed her eyes at the same time. "Tell me when I'm close to the lion," she said. But the zookeeper didn't say a word. He wanted her to experience it for herself. And before she knew it, her hand was touching the soft fur of the lion cub. She opened her eyes and saw a calm animal enjoying her stroke. Ella looked at her mother with a huge smile. But things were about to change. As the camera was still recording, Lily saw her daughter gaining confidence. She was now petting the animal with nothing holding her back. The shots were beautiful. A memorable video for later. But through the lens of the recorder, Lily saw the demeanor of the lion cub change. It was subtle, but it was there. Suddenly the ears of the little lion cub started to point upwards. And its head, which was first in a horizontal position, got up from the ground quickly. "What is going on here?" Ella's mother said nervously from the sideline. The cub looked behind her, and Ella did the same. At first, no one seemed to notice what was going on, but then a sound came from the bushes. Something was stirring there, and they couldn't make out what. But after 5 seconds a growl was heard from there. Ella kept staring intently at it, while stepping back from the lion cub. Because what they did not notice was that a second lion cub wasn't present at the resting place. It was lurking in the distance, and the female cub had just now reappeared. She stepped out of the bushes and walked towards Ella and the zookeepers. First, it was slow, but her steps quickened. It didn't take long for the lion cub to be in full sprint. The zookeepers did a few steps back now as well, all the while holding Ella as close to them as they possibly could. The lion shortened the distance between her and the humans in her sanctuary extremely fast. The commotion in the lion enclosure made all bystanders hold their breath. The cubs were small, but that didn't mean that they weren't dangerous. "What have I done?" Lily said to herself. Ella held out her hand but walked backward slowly. Stretching her arm out worked before, maybe it would do so again. What she didn't realize, though, was that the commotion in the cub enclosure had stirred up something else in the enclosure neighboring the large cage. There the grown-up lions lived, and they weren't as friendly. But Lily was too busy with the approaching cub to pay any attention to that. The larger lions had heard the growling of their young next door, and they had now awakened out of their slumber. Methodically they inched closer to the place where both fenced areas met. But the zookeepers, bystanders, and Ella didn't notice their approach yet. But in about 10 seconds, that would change. Ella took a few more steps backward for extra safety. The little girl was now almost all the way at the end of the cage. She now stood very close to the wall that edged closer to the larger lion's cage. The zookeepers were standing in front of her, shielding her from the small approaching cub. But then the unthinkable happened. Some of the bystanders who were also paying attention to what was happening in the neighboring enclosure saw that the grown-up lions had left their hideout. They searched and saw a grown male and 2 females moving through the bushes. They were almost at the place where Ella was standing. The little lion cub stopped her sprint towards Ella and the zookeepers. They felt safe again. But as more and more people started to notice what was happening behind the zookeepers and the little girl, the nervousness only rose. Now Lily saw the adult lions as well. "Look out behind you!" she shouted. The words of her mother shot through the little girl like a laser, and she turned around instantly. That's when she saw a sight she would never forget. 3 huge lions were standing behind her. They were jumping against the fence wildly. The little girl fell over out of initial fright. What happened next is still hard to explain. But luckily everything was filmed. When the little girl hit the floor at the end of her fall, she landed on the fanny pack she had brought with her. And when that happened, her life changed forever. As her body pushed down on the pack, a loud squeak was heard. And that squeak, things were put in motion that were hard to explain to the people watching. Because as soon as the sound was heard by the lions, all of them stopped their erratic behavior. They all sat down on their butts and seemed as focused as well-trained dogs, all paying attention to Ella. Ella got up from the ground and observed the situation that was going on around her. She saw the calm demeanor of the animals and realized that it was because of the sound. That's when she reached into her fanny pack and got out a small chew toy that belonged to the family dog. Ella forgot that it was still in there. They went walking with their dog earlier in the day, and they must have forgotten to take it out. But it was clear that the lions were responding to it. She grabbed it and squeaked it twice. The lions followed the movement of Ella's hand perfectly. It was a sight to behold. Everyone watching, even the zookeepers who knew these animals well, were in awe. More and more people from the sideline started to grab their cameras and were eager to see what would happen next. This little girl was in full control of the situation. Ella squeaked again, now holding the toy above her head. The gaze of the adult lions in front of her moved upwards, and the cubs behind her also followed closely. Ella quickly switched the toy from left to right, squeaking at each end. The lions' heads tilted, and their tails wiggled along. It was mesmerizing to watch, and even little Ella was amazed by her control with this toy. But the little girl wasn't done yet. Her confidence grew, and she wanted to try something different while she still had the lions' attention. She put the toy away, and immediately the lions became restless again. But then the little girl threw a curveball in the mix. The toy was gone, but that was part of her plan. She used her mouth to imitate the same high squeak her dog toy made. And wouldn't you know it, the animals responded just the same. sitting down again and paying close attention. The zookeepers were still monitoring the situation just to make sure nothing bad would happen. But also, they couldn't deny Ella's grip on these creatures. She ran along the fenced area from left to right, and the lions followed her footsteps, sitting down perfectly every time she stopped and squeaked. Her mother couldn't believe it. She knew her daughter loved these wild cats, but it seemed they loved her too. She zoomed in as much as she could on the situation, trying to capture every single detail. And that video would soon turn the life of this little girl upside down even more. After about 5 minutes of incredible playtime, Ella and the zookeepers stepped out of the enclosure. The little girl was received by a large audience who were all applauding loudly for her incredible bravery and skill. But the journey of the little girl was far from over because her mother had a plan. Her mother hugged her and told her that she was so proud. She also said that she wanted the world to know about her gift. Back home, her mother ran straight over to the computer to upload the video file. "I'm going to send it to the news station in town. People need to see this." And it did not take long for the video to get nationwide coverage. The news station picked up the video quickly and featured it on their broadcast the very next day. YouTube coverage from other bystanders also filled the internet. And that got the attention of a very special individual. A few days later, the answering machine in Lily and Ella's home received a message from an unknown caller. Lily pressed play and heard a male voice coming from the machine. The man introduced himself as a zoo manager from another zoo. Lily paused and asked her daughter to come over. Once Ella arrived, they pressed play again. The zoo director told them that he managed a zoo 2 cities over. He saw the video of Ella on the news and was amazed by her bravery and control. He asked if they were available to talk. Lily entered the number and called the man back. The phone rang and the zoo manager appeared on the other end of the line. He explained again that he had seen the video and that he was mesmerized by Ella's act. He said that he also contacted the zoo where it all took place for more information. But now he needed to ask Lily and Ella something. The zoo manager asked them if they were able to come over later that day. Because there was something very important he wanted to talk to them about, he had a proposition for little Ella. One that would definitely pique her interest. Both mother and daughter wondered what it could be. Curiosity made them say yes. And about 2 hours later, they sat in the car, driving over to the zoo. "What does he want to talk about, Mommy? Does it have to do with lions again?" The little girl asked her mother. Her mom didn't know, but it sounded important. After about half an hour, they were in the man's office. The zoo manager came in and shook Ella's hand enthusiastically. "Thank you for that amazing video moment, young girl," the man said, smiling. He sat down and told Ella and her mother that his zoo was dealing with a problem. And it indeed had to do with lions again. He told Ella and Lily that his zoo had acquired a new group of lions a few months back. But the creatures were antisocial. They weren't aggressive, but they hardly ate, and they stayed hidden almost all day. Maybe Ella's magic would work here as well. Ella looked at the zoo manager and then back at her mom. It took a moment of thinking, but eventually she nodded in agreement. The three of them walked over to the lion enclosure. She would stay outside of the fence for safety this time. "Let's try," the little girl said. The lions were about 30 feet away from Ella when she grabbed the chew toy from her fanny pack. But with a single squeeze and a loud squeak, the lions got up and followed the sound directly to the little girl. When they were there, the manager tried as well, but they were just not that interested. There was something about this little girl that was just magical. Something that spoke to these animals. "There is no denying how you attract these lions, little girl," the manager spoke. Elle put her toy away and imitated the sound again. The result was exactly the same. That's when the manager made Ella an offer. He asked Ella if she was willing to train these creatures. Not as a zookeeper, of course, she was way too young. But just playing with them from outside the fence, just like today. Maybe by doing so, they could become more social and interact with humans a bit better. Ella looked at her mom. Her mom nodded, telling her little girl it was fine. With a big smile on her face, Ella agreed to the proposal, and the rest is history. Now Ella comes by twice a month to play with the lions. She doesn't need her chew toy anymore for an introduction. Once Ella arrives, the lions just come running. And their plan worked. The lions have become way more social. They interact with staff better, are playing around happily, and are eating plenty again. Ella herself is just happy that she can now visit the zoo on a regular basis. She dreams of becoming a zookeeper herself when she's old enough.